Hello, welcome. Thanks for being here. If you are indeed here, and if you're not, that's fine too. uh, yeah, I'm Nemo, and this is the Mnemestream, which at the moment is me going through uh, recent writings and expanding on them, mulling them over, and in cases such as this, finding, oh, there's actually a bit more to this subject than perhaps I thought when I wrote the piece. So, the subject for the day is feeling and thought. When facts meet feelings, that's what I've called the stream. It's based on the piece that is on my Substack that's called Objective Morality. It's just like that. And the tagline for that is it's a fact that does care about your feelings. Cheeky little tagline there. So there's quite a bit of preamble that I'm going to do, which is kind of included in that as well before I really get into the meat of it. But this is a subject, there's so much to this subject actually, and it absolutely relates to manifestation, how we manifest reality, how reality is manifested, and how reality will be manifested. Because the work that we do on ourselves with our consciousness today is creating the reality of today and of tomorrow. And before action, there is always feeling and thought. And after action, there's more feeling and more thought. And often these things, thought and feeling, can be very, or seem to be in conflict or at odds with each other, out of alignment. And this causes all kinds of problems for us personally and evidently in the world as well. So, just a quick explanation of who I am. If you don't know, I'm Nemo Jones, and I sing songs, and I also enjoy expressing myself through word and through speech. And I consider myself on a path to help humanity. And it's not really an ego thing, it's just a care thing. In my mindset, the way my mind works, I seek for the true solution. That's what I'm doing. That's my nature, and so I'm interested in the real solution, the real deep solution underneath all of the noise. And that's what's led me to what's known as the One Great Work. That's what I consider myself a part of. I'm not in a movement, I'm not in a gang. It's just me endeavoring to align with my consciousness, to align my thoughts with my feelings, and then my actions aligning with both of those. So this action of me doing this is a demonstration of thought and feeling being aligned in action. So I've explained really why I'm doing this. I'm not messing about. I'm not doing this. It's not really entertainment. You know, I'm not doing this as entertainment. I'm doing this, and I'm not doing this for fun. It's not exactly fun to do this, but maybe we can make it fun. But it's really about the work of understanding reality and aligning ourselves in the way to create the most value. And this is a really essential subject when we want to think about doing this, how we can align, how we can bring thought and feeling into alignment and then act from that place and manifest a world which we prefer. And I'm going to be using that word preference because that's really tunes into what feeling is about. What do we prefer? Do we prefer this or that? And our feelings will tell us when we don't like something, you know, when we don't prefer it. And a lot of times it is that way round, that we know because something's wrong rather than we're, you know, I mean, let's face it, you know, a lot of life is suffering, right? A lot of life is suffering. A lot of life is evidently not quite right. It doesn't feel aligned. We feel out of alignment. We look around us and we go, does it have to be like this? Why the struggle? Why so much agony just to exist? So for me, this is a deep calling to attempt to do something about it. And, you know, live streaming to a couple of people, no offense, might seem like a little thing, but to me, it's not a little thing. It's it's what I can do. It's what I am doing. And perhaps I'm starting the ball rolling. Perhaps that will continue to roll. Perhaps it will help me to grow. It helped me to hone my rhetoric. That's something I'm interested in, getting better at doing this. Which I can see happening. So that's great. You know, a little pat on the back. Because I remember the first time that I did a live stream, absolutely terrifying. And it is what it is. I'm doing what I can. You know, I've put out 2 pieces. I really, you know, appreciate you going and have a look at them. They're obviously a different form. Sorry, I put out 2 pieces in the last 3 weeks, I think, which are specifically about objective morality and right action. And yeah, these are not, you know, it's not entertainment, and it's not, I mean, it is absolutely about self-development, self-improvement and manifestation, but not in the sense that those terms are normally or commonly often understood. A lot of times we're focused, the world helps us to focus on the personal, on manifesting what I want, manifesting the car that I want, manifesting the $1 million and all of that. There's a whole wealth of content out there really focused on those things, and it's interesting stuff, you know, it really is, because it, in a sense, it's true. We do manifest through what we think and by what we feel. We are manifesting this world in that way, but a lot of what's missed in that realm is the collective nature of this co-creation. And I'd say two things. One is the depth of our delusion and our immersion in the materialist conception of reality, and layers of other delusion on top of that, including what I call subdominism, which is the habit of thinking of ourselves in relation to who dominates us and who we dominate. So where in the pecking order do I fit? And the learned assumption that that is the way things are and should be and will always be. Because actually, you are of infinite value. You have infinite potential. And so the other aspect that's missing largely in the manifestation, personal development kind of realm is this attachment to the material aspect of reality. And there's a sort of paradox there, because a lot of times a lot of that world is focused on how we manifest reality through the non-manifest, i.e. the thoughts and the feelings that we pay attention to. So there's some understanding there, but there's a lack of understanding, I think, when it comes to basically the idea that, you know, it's really people are unconsciously or largely unconsciously just continuing to promote the idea that we're going to be happy when we get more stuff. And, you know, happiness itself is perhaps not necessarily the best benchmark of alignment, you know, because we can get happy in different ways, right? We can get happy, you know, I'd probably get happy if I had a drink, you know, but like 3 months later, not so much. And I know that from experience, so I don't go for that kind of happiness. So what I'm seeking, of course, it's great to be happy, it's nice, but what we're hopefully looking for as true spiritual seekers and conscientious beings is not exactly, I would say, the happiness of all, but the alignment of all is maybe a better way of thinking about it. And that's what this is about. So to do that, we have to kind of to start to look into that, we have to step out of the idea that it's me trying to get my little corner of reality that's working for me in this lifetime. I mean, come on, we have to get at beyond this lifetime. Clearly, that's not going to work. There's not going to be whatever you can achieve in this lifetime. You know, if you get to the end and you think, well, I did great, I got really, really comfortable in this lifetime. I'm so comfortable. I'm in the most comfortable bed in the biggest house with the snazziest cars outside, you know, whatever. I think we all know that that's not really it. So what is it? What is the goal? Well, the goal, as I see it, is to, you know, there's different ways of thinking about it. One is to, you know, from that very simple perspective, is to not leave anyone behind. That's an idea that's not really, that's complete anathema in the sort of manifesting world. for the most part. So what's complete success? What does like the most total and complete success look like? And it's heaven. It's heaven on earth, and we have we have everything we need to achieve that materially. So the problem is not material. The material is here. The problem is that the thing that's holding us back is in the mind. And we can talk about negative feelings as well, but I think principally it is in the mind. It's in how we think. So I'm going to be straight. There's so many things coming out of this. I've gone through my essay today, the one that I've mentioned, and there's so much jumping out of it that it goes in so many different directions. So we'll see how much I can get through. But to start with, and if you're just joining, hi, I'm Nemo. We're talking about facts, feelings, manifesting, and objective morality. And so let's define terms here when we talk about objective morality. And it might feel like that I'm jumping from subject to subject, but I think they're very interlinked on a deep level. So objectivity, the term, the etymology of object and object, which obviously is a root of objectivity, is to do with that which is perceived by the mind. So it's this idea that there's a reality out there, and the mind is is the perceiver of that. And the thing is that really when we talk of the mind, the mind, there's different ways of understanding what the mind is, or different ways of perceiving the mind, what the mind is. It's thought of in different ways in different cultures, historically. And the mind does feel. This is my position, is that when we talk of the mind, it's what we're really talking about on the deepest level is a point of awareness, a consciousness. So what does a consciousness experience? Well, it experiences an external reality, which includes actually the body. It perceives these phenomena externally, and then it also perceives an inner response. And in a sense, that sums up, the object and the feeling, the fact and the feeling. So when I talk about objective morality, I'm going to first, I'll put out my caveats of this, about objective morality. So first, thinking about the word morality, we can come up against some issues with just the fact of religious morality. So the problem, as I see it, with any religious-based morality is that it's faith-based. So without going into details of specific faiths and different kind of ideas of morality, it doesn't have an objective basis, in the sense that it doesn't really argue that it does. Well, It says, yes, this is what's in the book. The book's right. So there you go. There's morality for you. I mean, and that's in a sense fine for the believer in the book, but we're not really looking for that. We're looking for something beyond that. We're looking to move towards a reality where we can share, we can share an understanding. We can share this knowledge without argument, without dispute. So I'm kind of putting aside religious morality for just on those grounds, and looking for what you could call a scientific or an objective view, where we're just looking at, well, what can we perceive, and does it align? So does your perception of this aspect of reality align with mine? And if so, then we can call it objective. We can say, well, it's agreed. But there's a sort of circular nature to this, to my way of explaining this, which I'll get to. So for just while I'm talking, while you're listening, let's just not think about previous ideas of morality just for now. You can get back to them, but I just want to sort of lay out the way I see it. And if you can give it a try, I think it's pretty valid. I think it's a nice way of looking at it. By nice, I mean it's I think it's good. I think it's effective. I think it works. I think we can work with this. And it's an offering to the one great work. It's an offering of clarity, because I had to think for myself, well, how is morality objective? And I had to think it through for myself, and this is what I got to. And then I started to research, well, what's the arguments about it? And it all got a bit convoluted. And I thought, well, actually, I like my way of explaining it. It actually works for me. So I'm curious if it works for you too. Excuse me. So objective, the word objective means something like how an individual consciousness relates to experience. So how we can see what we're trying to see. Oh, sorry, I have got some comments coming up here. Let me see if I can. Sorry, for some reason I've got something. Oh, there you go. Hi, hey people. There are people here. Woo! I'm unsure how to define morality. Yeah. So morality, well, that's what this is all about. So we're going to get to that. Morality is it was coined by Cicero, a Roman philosopher, and as a translation of I think it's ethikos, the Greek. In the Greek, so ethics, so that's really what we're doing here. That's what I'm doing in my own way, through my own thought process. I'm reaching, well, what does it mean to me? How can I explain it in a way where it's solid? That's what this is an attempt for me to do. But if you look it up, what does it mean? As in the etymology of it, it's proper behavior. That's one of the definitions that I saw today. And proper is a very interesting word that I'm going to come back to in a big way, because it's related to the word property. And so what is proper and what is what is a property and what is one's property. That's a huge, brilliant thing that I'm really excited to get into. It kind of feels a bit daunting, but I'm gonna get there, because I've got some, again, I think, novel ideas on that. So objective, this is the point. Not quite following that, but okay, so how consciousness relates to experience, right? Just looking at my notes here. So another sort of caveat is that when we talk about moral law or natural law, we have to differentiate between, there's different types of laws. So if you actually like look up law on the internet, it will start straight away start telling you about man's law, which is kind of crazy, really, that's the first definition, because that's not what, you know, that seems like almost a abuse of the word, really, because the real meaning of the word law is, well, it can be defined, I'm sure, many different ways, but it's a concise, evidence-based generalization, that describes reality. That's a pretty valid way of thinking of it. It's like it defines how things actually are. So man's law is not that. Man's law is, in a way, a fantasy. I mean, it is. It's a fantasy. It doesn't actually exist. It only exists because I say it exists, and because I enforce it. Whatever, theoretical I, or whatever. So we're not talking about those kinds of laws. So we need to separate that. So moral law isn't something that. I mean, in a way, we can argue that moral law isn't imposed at all. It just is. It's called the law of consequences. So it's like, yes, you can break the law, in quotes, but there's consequences. There's always consequences. So that's how a law operates. But in this case, when I'm talking about objective morality, it's not even really going into that aspect of it about consequences. When we're talking about objective morality, it's a little ways back from that. We're talking about what we can discern, so what a consciousness can perceive externally, and then how that can be, how we can, from what we can see, what we can discern, and then extrapolate from that and reach a conclusion that results in aligned action, basically. But it's kind of even more stripped back than that when I get to my sort of actual way of thinking about it. So, but we are talking about proper behavior, proper, being, right action. And I've got the kind of, while I was thinking about this today, I realized that actually I've kind of got a thesis, in a way, that I'm putting out, which is that actually objective morality is thought meeting feeling. And perhaps you'll see that when I go into it a bit more. So another sort of caveat before I really get into it is that we have to understand, and I've touched on this a little bit, but we have to be aware of the reality that we're in, and kind of remove that from the ideal world, or the principle that I'm describing, because this principle is so hidden and obscured and obfuscated and denied, ignored, repressed. Denied, I mean, is a big one. It's like people say, well, there is nothing. They'll deny objective morality. So we have to sort of take that out of the well, we have to own up. We have to see where we are. The reality that we're in is immoral. That's kind of understood from the beginning. And this world has found a way, or has fallen into ways which I describe in the piece. Well, I refer to this description that's been given many times, which is the perfection of slavery. So that's where, although you feel that things are not aligned in the world and they're not really how they should be and they are immoral, you're not, that feeling is outweighed by feelings of comfort which are given to you in the material realm. So it becomes so dysfunctional that it's easier not to point out the dysfunction. Just like a dysfunctional family, like most families are, you just don't bring up the thing that's awkward. That's how awkward it is, and it just goes on decade after decade. Well, we've got that in a civilizational level, but it's now we are at this kind of crux point where it is now global. Hence, I'm here talking to everyone in the world at once. Hello. And trying to say, hey guys, it's crazy, we got to sort this out. We got to change this before the sort of the global thing, the global dysfunction is like too out of control. I mean, and it is already, and it has been, but there is this kind of moment of the global. We're in this moment of the global, which is different because in previous times there were pockets of very different things going on with human beings. Hey, if you're just joining, I'm Nemo Jones, and we're talking about fact meeting feeling. And welcome. Hi Jeffrey. And so it's acknowledging the time. You got to understand the time. And so the things that we can talk about in terms of principles are not the same as the things that we see around us. They're kind of alien from that perspective. So if you're in a dysfunctional situation and you start to talk about a non-dysfunctional situation, it seems kind of like, well, yeah, that would be nice, So, and that's where we're at. But what we need is people to stop saying, oh, well, yeah, that would be nice, and say, no, actually, this is it. This is what we're doing, and that is what I am doing. In the context of this dysfunctional world, people retain their conscience even within that, but it kind of has a limited. It's like myopic. They can see something if it comes right in their face. They can see, horrible things on the news, or someone is being violent in front of them or whatever. They see, oh, that's they can feel and sense wrongness on an immediate level, but there's a complete sort of disconnect with the foundational wrongness that we're all basically walking around on, which is understandable because it's millennia old. But that doesn't mean that doesn't let you off the hook, basically, because you still have a conscience and you still can align yourself and see the reality and say, okay, yes, this is really bad. And as I said last week, you know, realizing that actually is really freeing, because you can go, because you then, the wrongness that you've been feeling forever starts to kind of go like, oh yeah, no, that's actually right. It's right for me to feel wrong about pretty much a ton of stuff that's just taken for granted in the world. Like, that is actually correct. Yeah. Hey, Lighter Cult Revival, hello. And yes, so 1 second. Right, so I'm basically, that's all the caveats mostly out of the way. So I'm going to have a swig of tea, and then I'm getting to my actual definition of objective morality. Y'all ready? So basically, morality derives from the objective assessment of universal sentient preference. That's one kind of way of expressing it. Now I've got a couple more here, but that kind of sums it up. So sentient or subjective preference is another way of thinking about it. So to sort of expand on that, what that really means is you've got two consciences. Yeah, let's say you've got two amoebas, one amoeba, another amoeba. Now I'm this amoeba, and I'm looking at the other amoeba, and I can see, I know without doubt, or you know, I could test it, but we do know that that amoeba has the same preference as me. We know that from experience, right? We can see that it is an objective fact, provable objective fact, that all sentient life prefers not to be coerced, assaulted, murdered, deceived, raped, trespassed upon, or stolen from. Right? That's objective. And these are known as the true 7 deadly sins. And I don't know if it's Mark Pasio who called them that, or if they were known as that before. But anyway, if you know of the 7 deadly sins as being pride and all gluttony and all of those, they're actually not so deadly. It's really these ones are the deadly ones. And, you know, arguably the other ones were put there as a obfuscation and a way of kind of messing up your way of perceiving reality clearly. So since it is a universal fact that sentience prefers its self-determination to be absolute, i.e. uncoerced, therefore morality is objective. And the 7 sins that I've just gone through carry this meaning inherently. That which is freely offered cannot be stolen. Action which is chosen cannot be coerced, etc. So it's in the words themselves. Coercion means being forced to do something you don't want to do. No one wants that. If you want it, it's not coercion. No one wants to be assaulted. If you wanted to be hurt, then that would be that would not be assault. No one wants to be murdered. If you want to be killed, then it's not murder. No one wants to be deceived, you know, and that, well, you know, and then we get into the prison, you know, the comfortable, the perfect slavery, perfection of slavery, you know, because we're now at a point where, well, it almost seems like people do want to be lied to, you know. So that is, but again, if you actually want it, it's actually not a lie. it's kind of, it is quite convoluted. But also the point is, your preference does not override my preference. So if we're talking about, let's say, the lie of the state, then your preference to elect someone to boss me around does not override my preference to not be bossed around. Excuse me. So that's my very simple way of explaining objective morality. You know, it's objective because literally no one ever wants these things, right? No one wants any of, essentially it's being stolen from. No one wants to be, to have their life stolen, their free will stolen, etc., etc. You know, their things stolen, okay, or their deceit being the theft of. I always forget how to exactly phrase that, but their, well, it's essentially, it's a way of stealing someone's free will, I would say, and arguably it all comes down to free will, and that's what I'm leading to in an upcoming essay is going to be all about free will, as basically the thing that is at the root of property. So that is my definition, and then so I'll read a bit more from the essay. Morality is not objective in the sense that it exists beyond the sentient realm. Rather, it is an intrinsic and objective law of the sentient realm, concerned only with sentient relations. So it doesn't wander off. It's not some kind of abstract thing. And it's not, it can't exist without us. It can't exist without the feeling part. It is a law of feeling, in a way, a law of preference, a law of feeling. It's the same kind of idea, or it is the same idea. It's like, how do you feel about being deceived? Oh, you don't like it? Yeah, I don't like it either. So it's wrong. So I won't lie to you. So you won't lie to me. Agreed? Okay, now we're in heaven. You know, that's how it works, basically. It's like, and then there's another, if I carry on, we'll get to other different ways of thinking about this. Yeah, without sentience, morality means nothing. With conscience, it means everything. Its understanding is the source of all true value. Without collective understanding of morality, sentient life comes to be treated as material resource. So that's when the fact has left the feeling far behind. And that's the world that we largely live in. We live in this world where, you know, you've got this, I mean, I barely follow it, but the lady in one of the politician ladies in one of the political places in America going, oh, the GDP is up, you know, it's that thing, you know, it's like material, you know, and then, you know, everything, it comes down to that. And the world is kind of seen as resource. It's not seen in terms of feeling. It's not a place of feeling. And then everyone suffers, and they're like, why am I suffering? Oh, I feel so bad. I feel so awful in this place. Hi, if you're just joining us, I'm Nemo Jones. We're talking about fact and feeling and objective morality. So yes, without collective understanding of morality, which is where we're at, sentient life comes to be treated as material resource, and the world descends further into hell. That's where we're at. That's what's happening. That's what I'm trying to turn around. With the collective understanding of morality, with the collective understanding of morality, there is the kingdom of heaven, true value manifested, a conscientious world, freedom upheld and defended by all. evolution. So this is about evolution, because we're in a devolved world. We're living, I mean, in every sense now. Everything is running down, including our most precious resource, which is intelligence. Well, no, I'm not sure. What is our most precious resource? Our life, our potential to align. Because the stupider people are becoming, the less caring they're becoming, the further away heaven becomes, and the closer and the more that we are in hell. So yes, it's through this understanding. The other is, I am the other. I see the other as a mirror of myself, and I'm going to get to that in a sec. So objective morality can be thought of as a law of preference. So it's a law in the sense that it's always true, but it's not a law of like physics. It's a law of sentience. It's a law of consciousness. It's a law of how living beings actually, the fact of living beings, how we actually experience reality, and what our actual preference always is. So, meaning, what you can derive once you understand this law is, do unto sentient beings as you would prefer them to do unto you. Or, don't do unto sentient beings as you would prefer they not do unto you. Or, higher yet, do unto self-conscious sentient beings as your and their most integrated form would ultimately prefer, which is to teach them morality, whether they like it or not. On the surface, their higher self needs that. Is there a subjective morality, Zenya's asking? Yes, there is, and it's incorrect, because it's saying, that's how you get into arguments about objective morality, because my religion says this and your religion says that. Your law in your state says this, but my law in my state says that. That's all subjective. It's trying to remove it. It's trying to get further and further away, step by step, from this basic reality that I'm describing. So I'm into a bit now where I've written this, and I'm almost thinking I need to go back and rewrite it, because it's actually quite a tricky little bit. So I'm going to talk about it here. So yes, do unto self-conscious sentient beings as your and their most integrated form would prefer. So this is what I call the higher realm of right action. So it's when you teach morality, you raise the other up. You go out of your way to enlighten, to bring them up. And that is basically evolution. That's when you're actually on the side of life and you're saying, actually, guys, we can do better than this. Hi, people that are just joining. I'm Nemo Jones. We're talking about fact meeting feeling. It's nice to have a few people here. Hello. So this is another kind of summary of my thesis, or my explanation of how morality is objective. A rational and self-aware consciousness, such as you or I, possessing innate freedom, and a conscience, such as you or I, must conclude, because they're rational, that the fact of my preference and free will is mirrored and thus limited by the fact of the preference and free will of the other. So my free will is expansive. I have kind of infinite free will. And I also have preference. But at a point where my preference impacts on your free will, and your preference that is the edge of morality. That's what's called morality. You know, it's where I am stepping over the line. I'm limiting your free will. And you know, we can talk about that. You know, in the future, let's have great long discussions about that. But right now, it's not the time to talk about that because we're so much in the shit. We just need to get these basics down, because this is like so essential to just get the I think to really kind of, you know, align with and to really sink into this stuff and kind of and take it seriously, you know. So we then get to a point where, well, what happens? And people talk about hierarchy. Oh, hierarchy is natural. Well, hierarchy is natural in a way, in that, you know, there are people that are much better at talking about natural law than me, for example, and people that are worse. And there are people that, you know, there's no equality in that sense. Someone's going to be a faster runner than you, you know, but they're ugly or whatever it is. There's all these imbalances. Of course, there's hierarchy. That is true. But I'll read what I've written here to sort of get this point. A consciousness can argue that it is inherently superior to the other, i.e., I'm the king of England and now you have to bow down to me. And that therefore, because I'm inherently superior, it is legitimate or rational to extend my freedom to the extent that it denies or limits the inherent freedom of the other. And what I've kind of put in my essay about that is just to say, well, that's immoral. But that doesn't really satisfy me quite. So I'm going to like work on that a bit to like expand beyond that, because the thing is, ultimately, I think what it comes down to is that it's true that I might argue, actually, I'm the king of the world. Sorry, you're all my subjects now, you know, and that's just that. Why? Because I'm just inherently better. I'm just the best, the very best there ever was. And I own everything now, you know, because of that as well. And I can argue that, but what that ultimately comes down to is a preference. So it's just me expressing a preference, and it's still no, that preference is inherently has no more legitimacy than anyone else's preference. You know, it's just obvious, really. So anyway, that's that to sort of cover the supremacist kind of aspect. And supremacism is maybe kind of seems like the extreme word to use, but it kind of comes in other forms, you know, it's really inherent in the, you know, like let's say the class system in this country, and or the class system in the world, etc. So, and just the sort of materialist way of looking at reality, you know, it kind of has that inherent. It's like, well, I've got more money than you, so I'm afraid that's that, you know. You know, and people measuring themselves or other people by money, through money, you know, such and such person is worth this amount of money. And as I've said before, it's like, well, actually their worth is infinite, just like mine. So, yes, we're in a... Yeah, I'm going to get to the contentious bit of the argument, which is that, as sentient beings sharing space and time with other sentient beings, we're failing, we've failed, we've fucked up, we're fucking up. We're not doing a good job. We're not holding anyone to account. We're not doing this, what I'm talking about. We are being walked over, and we're walking over others. And it's a horrible mess. And it's just an awkward kind of thing to say. It's like, yeah, it's awkward. I'm sorry to be so awkward, guys, but this just is not working at all. And we've got to get a grip on reality, spiritual reality, moral reality. And basically, if we're not doing that, then we're not, then we're basically getting what we deserve. All this suffering, all this lack, this hideous lack, and these insane, whatever you want to call it, this geopolitical show, the whole thing. It's like, we deserve it. It's exactly what we deserve, en masse. It's precisely what we deserve. This fucked up world where there's so much abundance and yet so much lack. And essentially, until we get it together, this is what we deserve. This is what we're going to keep getting, and worse, because we are in, the globalism is a thing, right? It is a process that is happening. And what it means is the perfection of slavery, the continual, slavery is not perfect enough yet. Let's see if we can do this, that, and the other. How perfect can we make it? And how dumb and degraded and uncaring can we make humanity, so that it is literally just a fucking blob of immoral, worthless what's the word I'm looking for? Well, livestock. Livestock is the word, isn't it? I guess. And yeah, I don't want to end on that point, so I will say that it's been nice to have some people watching. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I'm kind of summing it up there. I think I've got the points across. Basically, it comes down to morality is objective because we can clearly see that no one wants to be done wrong by. And because no one wants that, that's the objective part. That's what makes it a rule. That's what makes it a law. It's an unbreakable law, as in no one ever wants that. That's what the law means. That's what makes it objective. Hope I'm getting that across. So it's not an imposed thing from, somewhere else. It's like you just look at the facts. There you go. That's what people don't want. So that makes that such and such behavior moral, that such and such behavior immoral, because it's always the same. No one ever wants to be mistreated. Yeah, it's a very, very simple way of explaining. And I find it, I've not heard it, and I kind of think, well, that's a very nice, satisfying way of explaining it to me, for me. So, but I will go back to this briefly, just go back to Where did I put my note there? Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, so in that sense, this is actually where what I'm explaining is thought meeting feeling, because it's where feeling being the preference not to be mistreated, the preference to be left alone, to be left in peace, is observed by the thought, and cognized and systematized into this understanding. And that, so objective morality is the meeting of thought and feeling. It's thought going, okay, feeling, that's a thing, right? Okay, yeah. And from that you derive morality, and then when you can actually begin to enact that in life and essentially ultimately force the enactment of that in reality through sharing the understanding of it, which is how it's going to work, then, so I'm distracted by by the note here. Sorry, I forget your name, love, because it's on because it says Light Occult Revival, but I'll look at that in a minute. Yes, so yeah, it becomes forced because it's just like it's just a numbers game. More people that understand morality, the more morality there is in the world. It's just obvious, super obvious, but it needs to be said. It needs to keep being said. I'm here to keep saying it, as are many others, but not enough, nowhere near enough. And I notice I am getting a little bit more militant with my expression of it, and I'm totally fine with that, because no one else is doing it, so you have to say it loud and proud. Right, thank you. Let's look at this question. Is it a question? What if there is no deserve? Yeah, I mean, okay, deserve is an interesting word to use. Or no tipping point of moral pureness. Okay, there just is an objective reality with individuated minds experiencing it, projecting subjective simulations. And then you said, yes, exactly. Fine-tuning our emotion, thought, and action to align with that objective reality is key. Yeah. What if there is no deserve or no tipping point of moral pureness? Yeah, I think it's an interesting word to use, deserve, and I'm not sure. I suppose deserve, it's like, well, he jumped off the cliff, what did he expect? Is that kind of deserve, I guess. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think that's how I'm using it, in a very objective kind of way. It's like, well, you get what you do, and if you don't do something, then you get the result of your not doing something. And if you are in a reality where you do have choice, moral choice, then like the Christian idea of us as fallen. Oh no, I don't like that one. And there is an ideal that we must manifest in order to deserve a moral world. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I mean, I think we have fought. I mean, I've used that even in a recent essay. A fallen world. We are in a fallen world, but I think the Christian, without going too much into it, because it was partly because I don't know too much about it, but it certainly gives people this awful kind of guilt complex. I mean, it's bizarre, really, because rather than like, yes, the world itself has become fallen, and we are born into that, and we inherit that. legacy, it's kind of understood, especially by children, as like, oh, I'm just bad, and I just have to, you know, hope. I just have to pray to this external being that is going to redeem me, but not even in this lifetime. You know, it's kind of like it's pretty yucky stuff as I see it. And the external being, you know, I'm fine with God, but not with as an external being. Like God is truth, God is life, God is evolution, God is, you know, within me, etc. It's like it's not and that's, so there's big problems there with that perspective as I see it. Right. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna mention that I'm playing in London next week on the 13th, Saturday the 13th, in Stoke Newington. It's a house concert. You can find the links on my website, which is nemojones.com. I think there's a couple of tickets left for that, and then I'm playing on the following week in Teignmouth, again on my website. Yeah, it'd be great to see you there. Got some really nice tunes, new tunes that I'm really excited to play. And I'm just going to grab a guitar, but I think it's stashed away a bit. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. You can see actually on my other channel, my music channel, I just uploaded a cover of Dock in the Bay, which is always fun to sing. So you can go listen to that if you like. And I'm putting stuff out on Instagram and Facebook fairly regularly, little shorts and stuff. And so you can follow me there, and you can donate if you want to support my work. Also on my website, there's a donate button. Regular donations are super helpful, even if they're small, price of a coffee or whatever. If you can spare that a week, it's much appreciated, and I'm super grateful to people who are doing so, especially because I am in a phase and I'm kind of moving towards doing more music, which is super exciting, because I've been writing some really, as I say, some stuff I'm really happy with, and I feel it's a different way of conveying this stuff, because I know this obviously isn't for everyone, but yeah, it's out there. Okay, I'm just reading these notes, but yeah, okay. Thanks for being here, and I possibly won't be here next week. Oh yeah, also subscribe to my Substack, and I have got another piece in the work, which is about those poor old psychopaths and how we keep letting them do stuff which, because they're conscious, they haven't got a conscience, and we have. So we've really got to, like, we are the conscience. They can't help themselves. So yeah, I'm writing a piece about that called Who's the Real Victim Here. That's going to be, I think, my next piece. So watch out for that. And that's probably about it. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time. Take care.